Welcome to Conversate, our podcast where we engage in conversation. And on this week's episode, I, Aaron, and Kevin are joined by Jesse Johnson, who's a member of Saints Peter and Paul. And we're talking the resurrection of Jesus Christ and its implications for our daily living. How do we live it out as dads, as employees, employers, neighbors, all that wonderful stuff. It's a great conversation, and as always, our goal is that when you hear something in this conversation, that you'll start a new conversation with somebody else about it, so that it can live on and can affect others. So, as always, we hope you enjoy this conversation.
Definitely.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
Greetings. 2023 greetings to you and the Lord, my man.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we already, those of you who are faithful listeners, we already name dropped last week that Jesse Johnson would be joining us, and so here he is. This is Jesse Johnson. Jesse, why don't you do a little intro of yourself, little bio. Where are you from? How'd you get here?
I'm a local,
right.
Born and raised. Got away for a while. Went to the University of Minnesota, which is a good 4 years. Came back, left again, came back. So I love May snow.
Yeah, I bet.
Happy May Day, by the way.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I remember when you guys first moved up here. I mean, your wife's from Minnesota,
Correct.
And as am I. And she was saying something about, everybody talked up the winters in the UP and all that stuff, and she was a little bit nervous about it. Or I don't know if she was, but. And then your first winter up here was lame. Like, it didn't snow at all. So, and then this one too has been. I don't know.
This one's been weird. Just bipolar.
Supposedly we still got the Kiwanis still got 300 inches. I heard, and then I just heard that we missed like 7 named storms or something. You know how the Weather Channel is like naming storms these days. So there were a ton of snows that like hit Minnesota and Wisconsin that we did not get. So that would have been.
We're blessed.
Come on, you like to ski.
I do, but Hawaii sounds really nice right now.
Yeah, it does.
Maybe there's an LCMS church down there.
There is. There's a couple.
Perfect.
Yeah. We have some folks from our church that they head out to Hawaii every spring. So yeah. Well, there you go. So Jesse, we invited you into this round, because we like you. So Jesse also serves on the board of directors here at Saints Peter and Paul.
First year.
Yeah. And your wife's involved in our Sunday school program and life group ministry. So yeah, you guys are a wonderful asset to the church. And but it's interesting because just a couple of it was before we started the sermon series on your own. You were mentioning to me that you had started reading N.T. Wright's
The Resurrection of the Son of God.
Yeah, The Resurrection of the Son of God, the big one.
I'm only a third of the way through.
Okay.
I paused it for a trip to Florida. It's not beach reading by any means. So I paused it and then just picked up on whatever this one's called. Surprised by Hope.
Yep.
Right? Which is a good summation and for a I'd say casual theologian. Right?
Yeah. Well, what got you interested in reading the big book, The Resurrection of the Son of God?
I think I heard it on a podcast that I had listened to, and some big name atheist kind of changed gears and developed faith from it.
Oh,
just
really?
From N.T. Wright's perspective. And I mean, he is the preeminent scholar on the current scholar on the resurrection. So felt it would be a good deep dive for a long winter. And
and has it been?
Couple winters.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
All right. Did you also read Surprised by Hope then too, or not? I'm
going through it.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So I'm just staying current with the sermon series.
Oh, all right. So, as we think about Jesus' resurrection and then how it plays out, because I think I don't know. We've been talking here on our podcast too about, like, I think, I mean, every Christian that's a true Christian believes that Jesus rose from the dead, right? You go to church on Easter. Jesus rose from the dead. We confess that, we believe that, but what people really think about what that means, even for Jesus, like, I think a lot of people think, I don't know. I'm of the assumption that a lot of people don't even know that Jesus, lived on this earth, or appeared to people at least for 40 days after his resurrection. I think a lot of people think Jesus rose from the dead means that he's not dead, but then he just kind of went away, and therefore at the end of our lives we just sort of go away and join Jesus in the clouds or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm just curious, like, what has been your worldview about the resurrection of Jesus, or about heaven, or the new creation? Like how did you grow up thinking about these things?
Yeah, I guess like most people, it was, you don't really think about it. I mean, outside of the fact that, it's a basic tenet of Christianity.
Right.
And, you believe in the lordship and the deity of Jesus,
mm-hmm.
but what does that mean? And what does it mean? What does it mean for your life?
Yeah.
And how you respond to that? If you believe it's a truth, you have to respond with your life.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone died and rose from the dead and ascended into heaven, mm-hmm. you're encountered with something that's pretty massive, and you need to respond in one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I grew up in the church.
Uh-huh.
I grew up in a family that was in the ministry. My great grandfather came over from Finland, and he was part of the Apostolic Lutheran Church up here.
Okay.
Was president of that for a while. I have had, family that's been in world missions, and my mom's Greek class away from her Master's of Divinity.
Oh, wow.
That will never happen. Sorry, Mom. You're not going to get past that. But, I guess it's just an evolving thing. And the more you explore, the more doors open, even though it's always been there. It just changes your way of thinking. And
yeah.
Which I think is as a taste, thinking about your story, Jesse. Here's a guy who has quite a bit of church experience, or exposure at least. But even thinking about the way we talk about the life of Jesus and his death and resurrection and what happened after, if you're formed by your creed, the statement of what you believe, that's kind of the pattern in the creed too, right? He descended into hell. The third day he rose again. He ascended into heaven. There's kind of a quick transition even in the creed of what happened in Jesus' life. And so, if we never have the chance to probe at, well, what does that mean though? That these are two distinct things, that it wasn't just, Aaron, to your point, that he resurrected into heaven,
mm-hmm.
but that he resurrected from the dead and then ascended into heaven. And if he's living and reigning in heaven, like you say, Jesse, just as a person in this world, you have to deal with that, whether you say, well, no, that didn't actually happen. I disagree with this statement of faith. Or it did happen, but I don't really think it's going to hit me, so I'm going to not think about it. Or if you're like, well, no, that actually sounds like this guy's got some real power, and I'm going to have to do something about that. But I think by and large, Christians around the world, thankfully we live in a time where there's a fellow like N.T. Wright to help us slow down and think about the ramifications. Because I know for me, it's been something that I also, having lots of exposure to the church growing up, I never really thought about. What does the resurrection mean for like my everyday life?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, and with that, it's like, I always just felt like I didn't have the end of the story, or it wasn't a satisfying end, like I think we've already said on this podcast, like even us, even us as your pastors, we, like, I grew up thinking, okay, what it means to be a Christian is I believe in Jesus. Yes. I go to church, and when I die, I get to go be with Jesus forever. all of those statements are true. Those are still true. It's just not the fullest extent of the truth. And that's, I think, what we want to kind of reiterate with people too. Like, if you believe that when you die, you go to heaven, that is still true. When you die, you're with Jesus, you're in his presence. Yes, true. But there is more to come. What happened to Jesus on Easter will happen to every one of us and the whole creation when Christ returns.
And the big piece to me of the challenge of that kind of a narrative, right? Of I live, I die, I go to heaven, I'm with Jesus. It just left a lot to be confused about, but what about my whole life here, other than just I hope I don't lose my faith, That's very ambiguous. And what I like about this Surprised by Hope and the walk we've been doing is it gives us a lot more, I think, tangible things to hold on to in terms of what does it actually look like to live out my faith? What does my hope look like in the present, lived out?
Well, I just had a conversation yesterday with somebody from our church here. And she said, like, this has been so helpful for her. And she even just said in the last 2 weeks of sermons, because I was having the conversation with her and I kind of did 2 in a row that were sort of in the similar vein, following up on this idea that of these worldviews we have, like either that the world's getting better and better, or that things are bad and the material world is bad, and we just gotta kind of get by, and then get rid of this stuff and go somewhere else. And she said, that she's kind of always lived in that despair mindset, which is just sort of like, this is rough, and the world's all kind of, gross and bad, and it's just going to be good to be done with this, But she said, it's already reshaping her worldview. She said, this is such a, I think she used the word hope, such a more hopeful way to live, and to recognize that, the good things of God don't start some other day, but they're actually available even here today for us to live in and lean into and share with other people. It just fills me with so much more purpose for living. And I was like, awesome. good. So yeah, Jesse, I'm just curious, is that are you that far into your reading and thinking about these things where you think about the ramifications, what it actually means for your life? You did say this means something for my life, but what that is and how it flows through you.
Yeah, I think if you look at Matthew 28, if we you take from right at the end, post segue, is that what it's called? From your previous sermon series. No, you have to look at the words of Jesus. Obviously, if we have a resurrected Savior that's working on behalf of us and an advocate for us in heaven, what are our responsibilities here on earth? And he spells that out pretty plainly in Matthew 28, where we're supposed to go, baptize, make disciples of all nations. We're the ends of the world, Hancock, Houghton, to some areas.
There's a sign. It says the end of the earth.
That's right.
Exactly. So this area, and in any stretch of your walk, I think that's, you just take that and go with it. So knowing that there is a life beyond this, and a God that cares for us, and a God that gave his life and has a plan and is continuing to work for us. Let's go do work for him.
Yeah.
Not that it's going to save me or, but it's because of his lordship and he's commanded us.
Amen. And the cool thing about purposeful living, I love that you took us to the Great Commission, because that is what Jesus has for us, because he wants all nations to be saved. He wants all people to be saved and come to a knowledge of the truth, right? Because he wants everybody to live in the fullness of what it means to be human in the creation that he's given to us, which means looking to him as creator, as Lord, not to ourselves, not to human authority, not to, we don't look for our hope in the things of this world. that's the very definition of what, like, frankly, of what evil and what hell is like, is when you abandon God's goodness and you pursue something else. And so, purposeful living and living in this resurrection hope, means bringing the Great Commission. But it also means that in everything that we do, living as humans is filled with purpose. So running a furniture store, or I'm sorry, it's flooring, furniture, and lights.
Home furnishings.
Yeah. Sorry, there's
Carpet.
not just
All kinds of
furniture. Yeah. But that can be a good and holy thing to do. Right?
It's vocation.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that's the idea that I'm speaking about, this Christian idea of vocation, right? Vocation, it's the Latin word for calling, right? Vocatio, like vocal, right? Like I call out to you. So God has called you to do certain things in a furniture store, as a father, as a neighbor, as a friend, right? In all of these things, there's purpose to that, because God created you to be a human, to live in the creation, to have relationships with people, and to tend to the creation. That's what it means to be fully human, right? And this is what God has given us. And I think the resurrection of Jesus and our eventual resurrection gives beauty to life now, even more beauty. So, yeah.
Uh-oh. Thighs. I had thoughts, but
Did you have thoughts?
They're ruminating. Well, I was they left me. If they come back, I'll pipe in.
You want to tell a joke, and we can press the joke button?
The laugh track button? I'm trying to think of anything Peter Pietola has said to me recently, but it's also escaping me. Do you know Peter Pietola, Jesse?
I do.
Peter, shout out to you, buddy. Thank you for the jokes.
Do you know what he said to me was, why did Jesus, when he would go out in the boat to have to speak to people, back in biblical times, he would go out on a boat and his voice would travel, and that was because of the 12 decibels.
Is that supposed to sound like disciples?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I said it. I don't think I set it up right. That's the punchline, but I don't remember what the setup is. So.
Okay,
Sorry.
wait. Hey, dude, this is perfect because my thoughts finally came back to me. So what I was thinking about was, you talked about, like what hell is, or evil, which is kind of like our abandoning hope in God and trying to come up with some way to establish, let's say, I don't know, some way of living on this earth without Him. But I think everyone is after, if we remove the idea of God, everyone is after trying, I think, to come up with a way that does lead to human flourishing, right?
Yeah.
Like we all want a society where, people can flourish and do what they feel called to do, or maybe how they're gifted to do, in a way that benefits society, and we can tear down things that have oppressed people in the past, or led to bad living standards in the world, all this kind of stuff. And what I find so compelling about this sermon series is, in this book Surprised by Hope, is that Christianity does give a vision for that, right? A way towards good life, the good life, but not just in some distant, disconnected, ethereal reality, but here in this place. And so, Jesse, when you talk about the Great Commission, or if we talk about salvation, one thing that strikes me is, especially the Gospel of Luke, when Luke talks about Jesus saving people or someone's salvation, right? When Jesus is on the cross, people will say he saved others, but he can't save himself. What did that mean for Jesus to save others? And when those people are shouting that, they're not talking about Jesus helped other people go to heaven, but he can't do it for himself. They're thinking of the ways that Jesus went around, removed illness, sickness, right? Increased the actual living, the life of people, to borrow John's language, right? To live life abundantly. And so that's what I think, is appealing. As Christians, we have this vision of human life that we can strive towards. if we listen to the words and teachings of Jesus. And I think it's compelling even to, like that atheist fella who read the book, Resurrection of the Son of God, and thought, wow, there's something to this, But what does it look like for us to do this, like, tangibly? Like, how do I, in my particular vocation, if I'm the mechanic, or the teacher at a school, or the furniture store / landlord of a rental property, how do we live into this? Because I think one challenge in this whole study is going to be, how do we not do what I just did, which is like get real brainy and think abstractly about stuff, but actually tangibly do this?
Well, if you don't mind, I mean, you told a story. What was that, at a board meeting, I think, about one of your tenants and giving him grace. You willing to share a little bit about that? I mean, I don't know how the end of the story played out.
I think we'll have to pass on that one this week.
All right, that's fine.
But
that's fine.
It is a good story for down the road.
All right. You got it. Long story short, Jesse gave grace. There you go.
Yeah. So what does it look like for us to? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm gonna stay up in the clouds a little bit,
Sure.
But and just thinking through this. So Bryant Weathers, who I think he's in your life group too, right? Good friend.
Bryant's great.
He sent me a video of a guy named Tim Mackey, who is one of the founders of the Bible Project. So we've also used some of their videos before. BibleProject.com. They've got like videos, summaries of all the books of the Bible. And it was a sermon from a couple of years ago that he was giving, which was actually right in line with the sermon I was talking about yesterday about heaven and earth, like being joined together, like God coming and making all things new. And he was giving that sermon as part of a sermon series called Compelled or something. Basically, they were encouraging their church or telling them that there are, was that what it's called? Basically, it was about evangelism, like sharing the good news of Jesus. And he was saying that this story that God will raise the dead and restore the creation is a compelling story. It's a compelling narrative because, and I tried to say this in my sermon yesterday, but I believe that everybody, whether you're a believer in Jesus or not, every human knows that the world is not as it should be.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, just, people are, I mean, it's the news. I can't believe that this happened. I can't believe there's another mass shooting. I can't believe that this thing happened. I can't believe that, that there's wars. I can't believe that people are in poverty. I can't believe all this. Like it's hard to, and then we create agendas and nonprofits and government agencies and all these things to deal with the problems and strive towards human flourishing. And many of those things are valid attempts. We should strive for human flourishing. Those are good, right? But if we're not doing it in light of the fact that God is creator and that he's got a way for the creation to function, if we're just making it up as we go, and you're saying to me, hey, give me all your money, I'll solve all your problems, and then all of a sudden you're putting yourself too much in the place of God, right? And we do this, like, I mean, unfortunately there are narcissistic people and selfish people who stand up and say, I'll do it, I'll save you, I'll solve all your problems, right? And then we have lots of people who give those people their money and say, yes, do it. You're my savior. You're the one who can solve all the problems. And we just put our hope in the wrong places, right? So it's compelling. It's compelling to say, look at the cross. Look at what Jesus did on the cross. He took care of the problems of evil, right? He conquered death. And he's coming again. And the whole earth will be filled with his glory, with his life, with human flourishing forever and ever. Like, isn't that compelling?
It's amazing is what it is. And I mean, not only do we have hope for the future, but I think even here on Earth, like we can say, you know, oh, it's, what are we going to do? Another school shooting, or, you know, another weather event or whatever. Something's, you know, whether we have control of it as humans or not, God's still active here. And all authority in heaven and in earth has been given to Jesus. Yeah. And that doesn't mean for just down in the future, but he's in control. Yeah. He's putting leaders in power, whether we agree with them or not. Yeah. But he has authority over those leaders as well. And so, I mean, there's many aspects of it. And once you see it and understand it, and you have that hope that the future is going to be good, you can live a life that's fruitful and free of fear, and you can move forward and be a productive member of society. And
absolutely. And don't get me wrong, I agree with you. If I sounded flippant about those in authority, no, we should support those in authority, absolutely. And we should work towards human flourishing. So absolutely, if we see, you know, if there is a mass shooting in our community, and we have the capability to tend to those who have been injured or hurt, or the grieving, or to help with the mental distress that's causing these things, like if those are your gifts and your strengths, and those people are in your community and you can do something, do it. Help, serve, like try to make the world a better place, whatever that is, because then you're doing what God created you to do, which was in the very beginning when he created humanity. He said, be in relationship with one another, be fruitful, multiply, tend to the creation. So what does it mean to be human? Be in relationship with one another, like God's in relationship to us. Tend to the creation. Tend to one another, tend to the creation.
Image bearers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm curious, Jesse, to hear, because so I'm a young fella, right, who's trying to be more involved in like my community, you know, and with others than I have been previously in my life. Like as a young person, I wasn't really involved in stuff. I mean, I did like extracurricular, you know, things, but mostly for self-serving.
Video games?
Well, I wasn't counting that as one of my extracurriculars, but that would be the most, the thing I did the most. So if you ever want to talk about video games, hit me up, guys.
We just got a Switch for Walt.
Oh my gosh.
Did you?
Hey, tell Walt to add...
He earned it.
Oh, what a guy.
Tell Walt to add PK, tell him to add RevKev 2020 on that bad boy. I'm just kidding. But so no, I do, like, I want to contribute. I want to help out. And in the past, part of, I think, why I was maybe, this is an excuse more than it is a valid reason, but maybe one reason I didn't get involved in things is because sometimes you look at the tenor or the energy in which people are involved in things, and it is one that's more fear oriented, or kind of like, I gotta get out and I gotta do this, join now. And I was always kind of like, I'm just kind of like sheepish, and I was like, I'm not really digging the vibe, you know. But you cast more this vision of, no, I don't have to be like full of fear and, you know, vinegar. I can just be fruitful, you know. And what are some ways like that you have found, or you or your family have found to participate like that, like whether it's communally or even as a family, you know, and friend groups? Like, what does that look like for you?
You know, my wife and I talk a lot about it. And I think that's the starting point, is when you have a mission and see how it aligns with God's mission in your life. You start seeing doors open. You start seeing opportunities, and it's not like you need to force yourself into these groups or activities or volunteering. Those they'll be there. Those opportunities are there for you and to join them, and they're great things, but they're not necessary. Like, those doors are going to open, and they're going to open by God's will, you know, and to concern yourself and get too caught up in what you should or shouldn't be doing, I think is the wrong energy that you need to display. And, you know, some people would probably think I'm a little, you know, too laid back when it comes to that thing, but I don't know. I think God's got a plan, and you know, I'll just go with it.
Well, I was going to say, it sounds like a reflection somewhat of what you just got done saying about Jesus being the one who's in authority.
Right.
So it's like, I don't have to, maybe bearing the weight of, I got to save the world, can create sort of that energy you're talking about. Right. That's like, a little too, maybe fear oriented, instead of being like, no, let me sit back and not do nothing, but like sit back and ask God, like, hey, where is your path or plan? Like, what doors are you opening for me in my particular context?
Well, and I think you can walk through Walmart and look at people. I mean, how many people are looking at the floor or looking at an aisle?
Sure.
Like, there's people everywhere.
Yeah. Just acknowledge their human dignity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And like, what better way to get to know people? Or, I mean, and you're not going to know like their heart and souls by walking through Walmart, but
it's a simple act.
It's a start.
Yeah, simple act that reflects, everything we're talking about.
Give them a smile and
say hi to the person who welcomes you at Walmart. To
Why wouldn't you?
The last 7 people just walked by.
Well, I love the way that you said too, like, Jesus is going to put the opportunities in front of you. And when you talk about these things and when you pray about them, and I've learned this myself, like if I pray, Lord, let me see the opportunities you put in front of me, not even that, but Lord, put people in front of me. Put people in front of me that need to know you, right? And if it be your will that you want me to contribute to that person's story, that they get to know you, make it known to me, and give me the desire to walk through those doors. I mean, yeah, the opportunities are endless. They're all over the place, but it's in prayer, it's in conversation that our will becomes aligned with His will. Right, as we pray,
right,
Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. God, I want my life to be done in the way that you do things. Right, as you do in heaven, let me do as your image bearer here on earth. So I want to be like you, Jesus. I want to live like you in this world. So prayer is a way that connects us to the will of God, and also in conversation, living these things out. I was talking to one of our disciple makers here, who's the storyline through his life and the way that God is working and changing lives. It's crazy. And we were having a conversation. I was just saying, it's amazing what happens when we, intentionally live out the Great Commission. And he said to me, he goes, there is intentionality to it, but I think the intentionality is I need to intentionally not ignore the Great Commission. And I was like, that's an interesting spin on it, because I think too often we look at the Great Commission and we think, okay, Jesus says go. I guess I gotta go. I gotta go change the world. But it's like, well, no, Jesus is the one who seeks and saves the lost. He's doing that work, and I get to participate in that work. And so, the Ephesians 2:10 language, that God puts good works in front of us so that we might walk in them. Those are the opportunities. He's putting it in front of us. We walk into it. We just need to intentionally not slam the door. That was this disciple maker's point. Like, the intentionality is like the Great Commission. Like, God will do what God's going to do. The Great Commission will be accomplished.
That's right.
If he's the one that says that it's going to happen, He's going to make it happen. So, and He wants us to participate. So just don't slam the door. Just live in the way that walk in step with the Spirit. Right. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's helpful too. Just, part of my journey as a Christian was also treating that almost the same way I treat like community groups, where I'm like organizations, who are trying to make a difference. I used to look at the Great Commission as, this huge burden. Jesus is asking me to do it, and I haven't been doing it. Therefore, I am failing. Therefore, God is mad at me. Therefore, please forgive me, God, again. And it's kind of this fear cycle. And John in his letter talks about love. He says, love is God, and he says, perfect love casts out fear. Right. So that fear dynamic is not a part of what God is about. And so I like that language where, it might not even be a sort of defiant slamming of the door, like I'm not doing this because I don't want to. It might be you've been thinking that God was asking way more of you than He is, or that He was putting way more on your shoulders than He's actually asking you to carry. You'll find that It's not only lighter, if you've thought that way, it's not only lighter than that, but it's a lot more, I don't know if fun is too light of a word to use, but like it's exciting to see the way that God surprises us in how he acts, the people he might bring around. Thinking of that, if I'm thinking of the same discipler, he may surprise us as well. And that might be hard. There might be some question about, oh gosh, well, so you're not making me save the world, Jesus, but like, I got to go hang out with this person,
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. What are we willing to risk or sacrifice, or what is our Lord, to get back to your Lord language, Jesse. Yeah.
But yeah, I think, like, to your point, there's just the peace that God has granted us through the cross. And, whether it's, you can live life without fear of condemnation, number one, and then a fear of screwing it up. There's one God, one Lord that's taking you through life and has placed the path of good works before you, and we walk forward. And we let God's light shine through us. As an image bearer, back to that. But
I think we should end it like this. So we're all dads of young kids. Jesse, you got 4. I got 4.
I got some work to do.
You got some work to do.
you're young yet.
No, I thought so. I was just thinking this would be fun. What if we each share something? What's a question? Either a question that one of your kids has asked about faith, or like a cool faith statement or connection that they've made.
All right, I tell you.
You want to? Let's do it.
I'm pretty good at rambling, so I'll ramble for a bit while I give me some time to think. Exactly. No, Lily, she's been really funny about like resurrection language. So she understands the idea, at least seemingly, that death is not the end. There is a resurrection, and she'll apply it to all sorts of things. So, so like if we're playing imaginative games, right, where people are dying, or she'll say things to me that sometimes I'm like, dude, you're 4 years old. You shouldn't be like, this is very harsh language. Like, I'm going to kill you, but then she'll say, but then you'll rise again, or you'll resurrect, or if someone dies, she'll say something like, but they won't stay dead, you know? So she's got already, and it's like, I don't remember as a 4-year-old thinking about the resurrection a whole lot, but I don't know. Kids are funny that way, where they sponge up, what you're talking about, and we've been talking about this a lot lately, so.
But I've got some to say about my kids, but in light of that too, like I've seen the same thing with my kids, because I think they understand life. There's nothing more human than life, and then so they also recognize that death is a reality, even from a young age, and so to tell them that death's not the end, that life wins, they understand that.
They're happy to accept it. Yeah. They've got less rational sort of voices saying, no, this can't be. Yeah.
Cool. Jesse, you want to go next? You got something?
I don't. I'm a horrible on-the-spot thinker.
Are you? Okay.
Aaron was just trying to buy time. He doesn't have one either. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, I got lots. Let me tell you another one, guys. Let me keep going. No, I don't have another
one. So yesterday in the afternoon, my kids were. This is not a statement or a question. It was just a cool experience. But in the afternoon, they were downstairs in our basement playing Legos or something, and we were upstairs, and they were singing one of the songs from church. It was the song "Ruins" that we've just done like 2 times. But they're singing. You raise beauty from ashes, 'cause that's what you do. You turn sorrow to gladness. 'Cause it's just like, it's so cool to hear kids, like, just praising God, right? Reflecting back what they hear, and leaning into that resurrection joy. Like, it's super cool. So, Jesse, I know there's lots, and your family does some cool stuff too. Like bringing like gifts and conversation even to like a homebound member of our church to be, and that kind of stuff. And she was telling me about your kids and how much they mean to her, and how they play with stuffed animals at her house and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, she's a blessing to us too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great.
Can I ask a separate question, Jesse?
Hit me.
You talked about vocation earlier, calling. As you look at your 4 children, is there one child where you're like, well, I think they're going to be this?
I know what they're all going to be.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't want to make it public
Just
record.
tell me Margaret's then, because that's the one I'm... Margaret cracks me up. I don't remember where I saw her, but she was reading a book. She was walking around reading a book. It might have been during the trunk or treat or something. It was super hilarious.
Yeah. She'll be a bohemian living in the East Village.
Wouldn't have expected that. All right.
Yeah.
I dig it.
No, she's unique
Yeah.
and artistic
All right.
and well-read.
Okay.
Awesome.
Very cool. Well, I look forward to that. I look forward to reading what she writes someday and being inspired.
Boom. Awesome. Hey Jesse, it's been a treat, man. Thanks for hopping in.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
As always. Thanks for being here. Peace.